The boy who cried cool. We all know the story. A boy gets one job. Watch the sheep. If a wolf comes, holler. So the village could come save the flock. One day, he cries wolf. When there's no wolf. The village comes running, and they see nothing. He does it again, and they come running, but they see nothing. One day the wolf finally shows up, and it's always been showing up. The boy screams for his life, but nobody comes. The flock gets eaten. We tell this story to kids to teach them that liars don't get believed, but that's not the only way to read it. Because there's another version, one where the boy was never lying, where the boy was seeing something that the villagers just couldn't see. And the tragedy isn't that he cried wolf too many times. The tragedy is that he was right, and we'd already decided not to listen. So gather around the campfire and let me tell you about a boy who cried cool. His name, Lupe Fiasco. And the wolf he saw coming is already eating our lunch. So what am I here to tell you? Let me say this plainly so you know exactly where I'm taking you. I believe that the single greatest disease in the Black community over the last 50 years is neoliberalism. It's an ailment, and I believe it got galvanized, packaged, and broadcast through the entire world through hip hop. And that is a large claim, but I'm gonna earn every word of it. But first I gotta make sure that we're on the same page. Neoliberalism, a political and economic philosophy that rose to power in the late 70s and 80s. So you can think Ronald Reagan or Margaret Thatcher for those across the pond. And the core beliefs are pretty simple. The free market is the best tool for organizing, not just the economy, but everything. You want to deregulate, privatize, cut public spending, and get the government out the way and let the competition sort it out. The part that matters for our story. Neoliberalism doesn't stop at banks and businesses. It reaches into you. It takes the logic of the free market and installs it inside of the human being. Under neoliberalism, you're not a citizen. You're not a member of a community. You are an enterprise, a brand, a little business. Your education is an investment. Your friendships are networking. Your body is a personal brand, and your worth is your market value. Neoliberalism, in layman's terms, is the quiet little idea that you as a person are a business. And everything you do should be making you more valuable, more marketable, and more profitable. That you should hustle, grind, and monetize yourself. And if you're broke, that's not the system's fault. That's your personal failing. You should have branded better. So hold on to that. Because here's the thesis underneath the thesis. Neoliberalism's deepest trick is that it dissolves the we into a billion competing me's. It takes a community and turns it into a marketplace of solo entrepreneurs all trying to out-hustle each other. And I'm gonna show you that hip-hop became the most beautiful, most authentic, and most effective machine ever built for selling that idea to the exact people who had every reason to resist it. This ain't a conspiracy, because I don't believe anybody sat in a room and drew it up. But it's much worse than that. It's the system. And the system worked exactly the way systems work. Think Kanye West. Picture events like a black tie. What's the last thing you expect to see? A black guy. The system's working effectively. That's why. You can't understand what you've lost if you don't know what was there before. So we need to go back. We need to go back to a time where Black American music did not start with a sales pitch. Gospel, the blues, jazz, R&B, soul, we have a lineage, a family tree. It grew out of the church, out of the field, out of the front porch, and out of our struggle. It was soaked in meaning. It carried civil rights, it carried grief, it carried joy. The whole time the world was actively trying to take it away. Sam Cooke telling you change is gonna come, Marvin Gaye asking what's going on, and Aretha Franklin demanding her respect. So let me be clear, because I already know someone's gonna try to run with this, and I'm not saying the music was morally superior and hip hop is morally inferior, because that's too simple and that's not it. Anything human can be sold. The blues got sold, jazz got sold, Motown was a hit factory run like an assembly line. Nothing's wrong with that. The distinction that I'm drawing is sharper than better or worse. It's this. In all the earlier music, the salesmanship never made it into the lyrics. The commerce happened around the song. It didn't happen in it. Nobody was singing about their endorsement deal. The hustle was how the music reached you, the distribution, getting it from the record into your eardrums. It was never what music was about. It was never the subject. Think about it like love and marriage. Love is a real thing. It's natural. It comes straight out of the human soul. Marriage is an abstraction of love into a contract, a legal financial arrangement that capitalism can recognize, tax, and process. And the love can be completely real even when the marriage is a transaction. The contract doesn't cancel out the love. Earlier Black music was love. It could be packaged and sold like a marriage, sure, but the feeling on the record was love. It was expression. It was testimony. So when capitalism came knocking, looking for a home inside the music, not around it, but in it, in the words, in the values, in the dreams, the song itself selling you something. It knocked on gospel's doors, turned away. Knocked on the blues door, turned away. Knocked on soul, there was no answer. Then it found a door in the Bronx. Knocked and it opened. And the machine damn near tore its hinges off. I need you to picture the actual conditions. This is a community that's been redlined, disinvested, burned, literally. Landlords torching their own building for the insurance money. The jobs left, the city services left. What got left behind was a generation of Black and brown kids in housing projects and rented rooms with no land, no capital, no inheritance, and no industry. Gang violence filled that vacuum because something always will fill a vacuum. And out of that, around 1973, hip hop is born with 4 elements: the DJ, the MC, the b-boy, the graffiti writer. And a figure I want to name, even though given his reputation now might be a costly one to associate with, Afrika Bambaataa and the movement he helped build, the Universal Zulu Nation. They took the energy that was going into gang violence and tried to redirect it. They had this idea the kids should be battling with turntable, feet, rhymes, and spray cans. Take the war and make it into art. KRS-One would carry that same torch later. The idea that this was a culture of peace, unity, and having a good time. A youth movement with a soul. And to be real, how I read these early figures, I think that their vision was pure. I think it was good-spirited, but I think it was bastardized and turned into something that the founders wouldn't recognize. If you've watched Naruto through the Shippuden arc, then you know about Yahiko and the Katsuki. Somebody starts a movement to save people, believes in it 100%, and dies pushing that line of protection, peace, and love. Then that same movement gets hijacked and turned into the exact thing that it was built to fight and prevent. That's the early story of hip hop. It's a beautiful idea, waiting on the world to twist it. But the part I really need you to sit with, because this is the engine of this whole thing, is why? Why did this community produce this thing? Why cool? Why hip hop? And I'm gonna build it out for you piece by piece like a logic problem. Take any group of people, even a group with no money, no land, no industry. What do they always have in a capitalist society? I'll give you a second. They have labor, their hands, their bodies, their time. They also have culture, their song, their dance, their language, their style. Economists call that human and cultural capital. You can be the poorest of people in a country and still be rich in those aspects. The kids who made hip hop did not own land, they did not own buildings, didn't have generational wealth to trade on. So what do disenfranchised people bring to the market? They bring labor, and they bring culture, their songs, their dances, their style. And the most concentrated, most valuable form that culture took was a single thing: the essence of cool. The ability to express yourself, the ability to undeniably, magnetically, and authentically be yourself. And here's why cool specifically is so valuable and why it belongs to the have-nots in particular. Commerce runs on trust. It always has. Picture a merchant in the 1600s loading a ship with silk and sending it 3 months across an ocean on nothing but a promise that somebody on the other side will trade for it. If that promise breaks, lives get ruined, reputations die, wars begin. And trust runs on familiarity. We trust people who look like us, talk like us, worship like us, cry like us, feel like us. Now think about who can't afford to fully be themselves. And I'll give you a second. You thought the wealthy, powerful, the people with the most to lose, then we agree. They can't say the controversial thing. They can't go against the grain. They've got too much riding on staying acceptable and keeping things exactly the way that they are. And it's not even that they can't, it's that why would they? Keeping their mouths shut and fitting in costs them nothing but protects everything. The real question is what's worth it more to you, $1 billion or your opinion? Most people would take the money, and most people do. So with that being said, authentic self-expression becomes a risk the people up top can't afford to take, which means real freedom of self becomes this strange luxury that belongs to the people with the least to lose. The have-nots can be real because reality is all they got. That realness is cool, and cool is the one resource that the market can't manufacture but desperately want. So now you do the math. You've got a group of people whose number one tradable asset is authentic cool. You've got a market that runs on trust, and nothing builds trust like authenticity. And you've got a capitalistic system whose entire job is to find anything valuable and turn it into a product. You see, that's not a conspiracy, that's gravity. The moment authentic black cool became visible and tradable, this system was always gonna take it. It doesn't need a villain, it just needs an incentive. My boy Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's right-hand man, said, "Show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome." The villains come later, but the trap was set by math. The X's and O's were already written in the playbook. For about 6 years, hip hop lived in the parks, the rec rooms, the block parties. It's a live thing. It's not for sale because there's no product yet. You literally had to be there. Then 1979, a label called Sugar Hill Records, run by Sylvia Robinson, puts out a song called Rapper's Delight by a group called the Sugar Hill Gang. It's a smash. This is the first time this thing has got pressed on the wax and sold, across the country, across the world. The purists would tell you the Sugar Hill Gang weren't really from the core scene, that they got assembled, that some of their rhymes had other authors, and there's truth in that. But we're gonna give them their flowers anyway. I'm calling them the founders of recorded hip hop because someone has to be. Someone had to be the first to turn the live thing into a record, and they were the first. They opened the door from you had to be there to, oh, you could go buy that. And the second that door opened, the clock started ticking because now there's a product. And where there's a product, you have to develop a market. And once you develop a market, capital is gonna come looking for a home. It'd take more than a decade for the markets to fully mature, for the underground thing to become a mainstream thing. The whole 1980s hip hop was just building out its body in public. And for a while, the culture could still tell when something was trying to play it. Then we got our first cosign. In 1986, Run DMC drops a song called My Adidas, and it's exactly what it sounds like. 3 guys from Brooklyn, the first cosign. In 1986, Run DMC drops a song called My Adidas, and it's exactly what it sounds like. 3 dudes from Queens shouting out their sneakers. The corporation notices the song is moving their product without them having to pay. So Adidas signs Run DMC to an endorsement deal reportedly over $1 million. The first major corporate endorsement deal in hip hop history. This is the first time a corporation looked at the culture and said, oh, we'll pay y'all to wear us. We'll pay you to talk about us. And the culture understandably celebrated it. It felt like a win because it was a win. These were black kids from Queens pulling corporate money in 1986. How do you not shout that out? But a door had been walked through. The product was no longer just the music. The artist had become the billboard. And yet the culture still had its guard up because right alongside that, you got Public Enemy telling you to fight the power, building a whole aesthetic out of black political radicalism. You got NWA and Compton making music so oppositional the FBI mailed him a letter. Late 80s hip hop was still at its core against something. It could take a corporate check and still spit in the face of the system on the same album. So the question is, what happened to our guard? When did fighting the power turn into flexing the power? When did the music stop being against the thing and start being the thing's best salesman? This is where the wolves come in, our pivot. Early to mid 1990s, in comes a new player on the scene, Sean Combs. P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Puffy, the artist formerly known as the only nigga to make you dance at a funeral, and the label that he builds, Bad Boy. Look, it would be easy and cheap to call him a villain and move on. So we're gonna break down what he actually did because it's an important thing. Puffy understood something instinctively before anybody else in hip hop had fully weaponized it. That the music could be a periscope, a mood board, a window into an aspirational lifestyle. He takes an artist as real and gritty as Biggie, a brilliant natural storyteller out of Brooklyn, builds a machine around him and points all that realness at one target, the luxury market. champagne mansions, shiny suits, the whole bling bling dream of having arrived. More Money, More Problems is an advertisement disguised as a complaint. He basically set the blueprint for what Drake would become. Bars built to become Instagram captions. He crossed over. It went pop, it went to the suburbs, it went global. Grimy New York got polished into glamour, and the glamour was sold. Hip hop went from fighting the power to aspiring to the power. It stopped saying the system is rigged against us and started saying, here's how you individually could win inside it. And that right there is the genesis of a neoliberal message. The dream of breaking free from the system turned into the dream of breaking in. The we of our people quietly turned into the me. If you imagine this whole machine as one company, and that's the easy way to think about it, Puffy is the VP of sales and marketing. He's the one who spearheaded the campaign. Then we had the South, our Southern models. I'm from the South, so I gotta approach this part with a little bit of grace because the South wrote the next chapter, but it's a little bit more complicated than the New York one. We got the late 1990s New Orleans, two empires rising. First, we have Master P and No Limit Records, and I'm gonna keep it real with you. I give P the utmost grace because what he built was on paper the black man's dream. We all know it now. Master P, the successful baller, rapper, mogul, self-made millionaire business owner, good dad. He cut a distribution deal where he kept the overwhelming majority of his profits, the exact kind of ownership black artists had been robbed of for a century. He kept his masters. He built a black-owned independent empire out of nothing but the trunk of his car. And the militaristic aesthetic that he designed was genius. The tank, the soldier rags, the camo. He took hood loyalty and repackaged it as brand loyalty. I think P was largely a product of his environment, doing just the most logical thing available to him. And over time, he drifted towards promoting positive images, teaching about ownership, financial literacy, and bringing other people along. I don't fully see P as a wolf. I read him as a man who learned the game and tried to bring people with him. Cash Money, on the other hand, Birdman and Slim, hot boys, big timers, is where things could get tricky. Cash Money also pulled off a legendary deal. Kept their masters, took a huge advance, built an empire, all that. Black ownership, shout out to them. But the content, the big timers flexing so cartoonishly, it was almost a parody of itself. This was the birth of bling bling as a whole world view. Aspiration turned all the way up to trunk rattling, beating down the block levels of achievement. And Birdman to me sits much closer to the knowing and shameless end of the spectrum. The point was the money, and he said it loudly and proudly. So which is it? Black liberation through ownership or corporate greed dressed in black skin? The real is that it's both at the same time. These men genuinely beat a system that was built to rob them, leave them stripped. And in beating it, they became its most enthusiastic salesmen. They proved that you could own the machine and keep the machine running, broadcasting the same message, get yours individually by any means, and flossing on everybody like you hate on them. That's the trap. You could win the game for me and still be losing the war for we. And then we have our final form. The man this whole machine was building toward, Sean Carter, Jay-Z. With Rockefeller Records, you see it in the name. The play on Rockefeller, telling you exactly what the aspiration was from day one. Followed by Rocker World clothing line, the mid-2000s, the presidency of Def Jam itself. The artist became the head of the label. The operator became the owner-operator. And eventually a billionaire. With a hand in liquor, streaming, sports representation, art, you name it. There's a famous line where Jay breaks this down and completely removes separation between man and enterprise, where he tells you he isn't a businessman, he's a business, man. You feel that line. That line is the most pure expression of neoliberalism I've ever heard delivered in popular music. Remember the textbook definition from the beginning. Neoliberalism takes the logic of the market and installs it inside the human being until there's no difference between the person, the product, and the enterprise. Jay didn't just live the idea, he made it cool. He made being a corporation the highest form of self-actualization a kid from the hood could aspire to. And the inversion I need you to fully see, because it's the heart of everything, is that in rock and roll and punk and grunge, selling out was death. If you found out that your favorite band had licensed their music to a soda company, you turned on them. The audience policed authenticity ruthlessly. Corporate co-optation was the ultimate shame. The fans would not rally around it. In hip hop, the exact same act, getting the corporate bag, the brand merging with Capital became the crown, the throne. It became proof you'd won. The thing that would have gotten Aerosmith branded a sellout got Run DMC called geniuses. What was a defect in every other genre became a celebrated feature in this one. And that's not because hip hop's audience is dumber or more shallow. It's the exact opposite. It's because hip hop had something no other genre had to the same degree. It had authenticity, realness. It came from real struggle, from real places, with real people, real stories, true to the person that was telling it to you. And that realness is exactly what made it the perfect vehicle. Think about the Super Bowl. Every other day of the year, you skip commercials. Change the channel, hit fast forward, get up to go fix a plate. The second the TV hits a commercial, people resent it for interrupting them. But on Super Bowl Sunday, people throw parties to watch the commercials. The ads become the entertainment because the spectacle is so high effort, so well made, and so woven into something you actually want that you stop experiencing it as an ad and start experiencing it as content you chose. That's what hip hop became. This Trojan horse, the most authentic, most believed, most beloved, most trusted art form Black America ever produced, and therefore the single most effective billboard capitalism has ever rented. The commercial wasn't grafted onto something you hated, it was grafted onto something you loved and believed. And that's why it worked. The authenticity wasn't a defense against the selling. The authenticity was the delivery system. These men, Puff, Jay, and the model that they perfected, they're the wool. The ones that the little boy was crying out about, not because of their cartoonishly evil, but because they went from operators to owner-operators. And somewhere in that climb, they became the head of sales and marketing for an idea that ate the collective soul of the very people who made them. They're the ones standing at the front of the room in effect saying, come on everybody, let's make cocaine cool. The exact way Lupe tried to tell us that they would. And then we get into the world that Lupe walked into. We had 2006. Let's picture the landscape. The pivot done, complete. Resistance is out, aspiration is in. The biggest stars are corporations with faces. Authenticity has been fully converted into a marketing term. Keeping it real is now a product you can buy. The we has been broken all the way down into a million hustling, flexing, grinding me's. Each one convinced the answer to a rigged game is to win it individually and stunt on everybody who came up beside them like they don't mess with them. And into the world walks a skinny skateboarding, deeply bookish kid from west side of Chicago, Usalu Jacko, Lupe Fiasco. And the irony, Lupe got his shot in part because of Jay. The connection that landed him at Atlantic ran straight through one of the very wolves. The prophet got carried into the temple by the thing he came to warn against. From day one, he was inside the belly of the beast he was trying to expose. His first album, Fruit and Liquor, already has the ring of somebody who sees what is around them. The whole title is a thesis, the food and the liquor, the good and the bad, the nourishment and the poison sold in the same corner store to the same community on purpose. He's telling you the neighborhood is getting fed and poisoned by the same hand. But it's the second album where he builds this whole warning into a story. And that album is our story's namesake, The Cool. Cool is our warning. 2007. On it, Lupe does something almost nobody in mainstream rap was, has, or is doing. He built an allegory, a full mythology with characters to explain the trap to you in a form that you could feel and understand. There's three figures: the cool, the streets, and the game. The cool is a character. He's a dead hustler who clawed his way out of his own grave, drawn right back to the streets that made him. The streets is a seductive woman. She's also the environment, the place itself. And there's the game, the father figure. He's the rules, the hustle, the system that raises you when nobody else will. And the story Lupe tells with those three is exactly the story I just told you. A young person, fatherless, abandoned by the legitimate world, gets raised by the streets and the game, gets seduced by the cool, chases it, dies for it. And the cruelty, the worst thing, is that the cool loves the very things that killed him. He can't stop going back. The trap isn't imposed from the outside by a villain twirling his mustache. The trap is what you come to desire. The trap is that you come to desire the thing that destroys you. You fall in love with your oppressor. You think your cage is shiny and beautiful. That's neoliberalism, told as a ghost story. Is Lupe doing Get Out before Get Out, musical form, about our actual lives? This system doesn't have to force you, it just needs you to want it. And then there are the songs that say it plainly, put you on game. Lupe raps from the perspective of power itself, the system, the seductive, cynical voice that runs the whole thing and is happy to tell you exactly how it owns you because it knows you can't resist it. And then he did Dumb It Down, which is probably the most direct shot. He does 3 crazy, dense, brilliant, near impossible technical verses. And after each one, a voice tells him to dumb it down, simplify, stop being so smart, get the people what sells. Is Lupe dramatizing the exact pressure the industry was putting on him, the demand to make himself smaller, dumber, and more marketable? He turned the industry's own instructions into the hook of the song. And then there's Superstar, the poppy one that you probably know, the one that became a hit. A gorgeous, sad meditation on fame as a kind of loneliness, aspiring to the spotlight to find out that the spotlight is empty. So here's the question that haunts that whole album. The Cool did okay. It had a hit. It was critically acclaimed, overly critically acclaimed. But it did not become the generational era-defining juggernaut that the quality might suggest. And I'd argue that's not a footnote, that the Thesis proving itself in real time. The Warning got told to dumb it down. The album that diagnosed the disease got outsold by the disease. The boy cried cool and the village kept dancing. So nobody listened. Look around now. The thing Lupe drew as a horror story is just the water we swim in. Everyone's a brand. Every kid's got a personal brand before they've got a personal sense of self. Self-worth is a follower count, friendship is networking, struggle is content, the grind is what people worship, it's the most holy of things. Flexing is the whole point, clout is the whole point, being cool is the whole point. We have fully and completely internalized this idea that you are a business. Your number one job on this earth is to grow your net worth, increase your market value, and broadcast the receipts. And social media poured gasoline on every inch of it. And understand the timing that Lupe was warning us about this in 2007, before the smartphone, before Instagram, before any algorithm was deciding what you saw and turning every teenager into a corporation performing themselves for engagement. He called this in alpha, not in beta. He called it while it was still being built, before the thing ever shipped. The wolf he pointed at didn't just show up, it moved in, had kids, and they could vote now. I don't want to rush past this casualty, because this is the part that actually matters. This is the body in the story. The casualty is the we. Let me make that concrete, because the we sounds like a slogan until you watch it die. There was a version of us that survived on the porch and in the pew, people who made music about all of us getting through this together. Mutual aid wasn't a buzzword, it was just a Tuesday. You looked out for the block because the block was you. Your neighbor's kid was your kid. Your friend's mom was your mom. A grown woman you actually had to listen to. The whole point of the songs was the we's. Now we make and consume music that we overwhelmingly consume music that's overwhelmingly about one person getting over alone and letting you watch. And it didn't just change the music, it changed how we interacted and saw each other. The culture became a leaderboard. Everything was about hustling against the exact people that we should be standing beside. And here's the genius of the trap, the part that should make you sick. It convinced the have-nots to identify up instead of across, to root for billionaires like they're on the home team, to measure our own lives against the flex that was manufactured in a studio specifically to make us feel behind. We inherited the broadcast and forgot it was an ad. Think about what that actually pulled off. Of people who held on to each other through slavery, through Jim Crow, redlining, held on because holding on was the only thing that ever worked. Got sold the idea that you can make it out alone. The solidarity is for suckers. That the move is to get yours and the stunt on those who can't. And the idea did something that the chains and the laws and the bank maps could never do. It got us to let go of each other voluntarily and call it ambition. That's the wolf. It's not a person. A story about who we are, a story that turned a we into a million lonely me's and sold it back to us as freedom. The wolf is real. The wolf is here. And it already ate the flock when we was arguing about who got the iciest chain. So whose fault is this? Now, I'm not going to try and point at two dudes and call it a day. We got to break it down and analyze where the blame actually sits, because where you put the blame is the whole argument. The majority of it, in my opinion, more than half sits with the corporations. They control the budgets. They decide what gets funded, what gets promoted, what gets pushed through every screen. They set the incentives, and incentives are like destiny. Like my boy Charlie said, show me the incentives and I'll show you the result. So here's how it actually works. When the only art that gets a marketing budget is art that flatters the market, then over time that look becomes the sound of success, not because it's musically better. Same way for my film folks, an anamorphic lens isn't naturally better than a normal lens. It just gives that blockbuster look. That's what it was originally used for. And that's where you got used to seeing. So now when you see that lens flare, your brain goes, oh, this is a high budget movie. Because that's the only place you've ever seen it. If you've grown up seeing it on home video cameras, you'd associate it with home video. So it's just an association. The corporate sheen became the sound of winning purely because winning is what got the budget. And then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Think about a kid who wants to get signed. They look at who's winning, they see them flexing, and they go monkey see, monkey do. Eventually, all the music is about the same things because that's what gets promoted. That's what sells. And if you want to sell, that's what you make. And that's what gets us here. The real but smaller share, I say about 25%, sits with the artists because they could say no. But saying no means turning down the bag. And the commercial artist's whole survival is monetizing their art. So when the people funding your dream are paying you to advertise, advertising is what you better make. That's not evil, that's rational. Most of the people are just trying to eat. A few of them, the wolves, went way past survival and became the evangelists. There's a difference between the soldier and the general. The smallest share goes to the audience because, I mean, we do have a choice, but we're also a captive audience. This music, this message, this whole value system gets pumped through every channel you can't avoid. You'll hear it whether you was looking for it or not. So you can't really blame a fish for the water it swims in. The audience sin is small and forgivable. We just be dancing. So notice what this breakdown does. It refuses the easy story where the rappers are demons and the kids are victims. It puts the weight on the people who controlled the incentives because this was never really about a few bad men. It's a system doing exactly what it was built to do with willing operators and a captive crowd. So show me the incentive and I'll show you the result. So that brings us here to now you know. And on this way out, let me leave you with two names, Cole and Kendrick. We'll call them the Pallbearers. They came up right after Lupe, grew up on the warning and carried it differently. They spent whole careers wrestling with the exact thing he named. And a couple of them got close enough to see the throne, look the idol dead in the eye, and find out it was empty up there. I'm thinking J. Cole, rich N-word. There's a part where he talks about J. Cole says, can't front on the flows you got, but every verse, how much dough you got. Homie, don't quit now. Hear my and try to switch now. How you feel that now? I know you feel that now. Ain't there more to you? Don't it ever get born to you? I realize deep down you a coward getting a high off of power. F it, more to you. I saw through you. And it made me ashamed that I played the game. And not for more money like Damon Wayne. Wanted the respect, but it came with fame. I just wanted the love, but this ain't the same. That's a man telling you the top wasn't what he thought it was when he was climbing towards it. They're not tonight's story though. They're just proof that the warning didn't die all the way. Now look, this is the part where I stop breaking it down like a professor and I just talk to you. Because I'm not going to stand here like I got it all figured out. No. I'm in this with you. I got the same wolf in my pocket that you got in yours. So we put this like a big brother telling you about a problem that they've already encountered so that you don't have to go through the same thing. The people who came before us, the ones who made it through Jim Crow, redlining, slavery, they held on to each other because holding on was the only thing that ever worked. They didn't survive all that with the we so that we could inherit the we just to trade it in for an Instagram caption and a new chain. That's not what they bled for. And the kids coming up, a lot of them have a personal brand before they have a personal self. Learning to perform a version of themselves before they ever learn how to just be themselves. And this happened on our watch. So this ain't really about you or me. This is about what we hand down. So what I'm not going to do is sit here and leave you with a bunch of questions or tasks about how you could figure this out, because that's the trap right there. You by yourself figuring it out. Me by myself figuring it out. That's the trap. So I'm gonna tell you what we can do together, because togetherness is the one thing that I know the wolves can't beat. Support your favorite artists. Buy their album, go to their concert, buy their merch, watch their videos, stream their stuff, put other people on them, post them, promote them. Become part of the machine for spreading good music, good messages, and positive images and depictions of us and we too. Stop funding the fantasy. We don't need another song where a rapper is talking about how his jeweler is a mad scientist that put so much ice on him that he gonna be cryogenically frozen and come back in 100 years. Why do y'all like listen? Why do we like listening to stuff like that? Evaluate that. Stop supporting people pissing on you and calling it rain. And 3, we got to get the we back. Mutual aid is not a hashtag. It's just something you should do. We have to stop seeing ourselves as individuals with associates and start seeing the we again. Your neighbor's kid is your kid. Your homeboy's mama is your mama. Their brother is your brother. Stop treating people you should be standing next to as competition, and engage, because a cookout doesn't work if everyone is sitting on their phone. I remember going to a Black Man Initiative meeting. I was left with a quote that I decided that I was going to steal. And it's that so many of us are searching for a village that we forget to be a villager. If you want to build a community, stop trying to be the HOA and just be a community member. Just do it. Just treat people with kindness. Just be friendly. Just be supportive and just help. That's how a community thrives. It's not complicated. It's not easy, but it's not rocket science. Lupe stood in the middle of the party back in 2007, pointed at the door and told us there was a wolf, and we were having too good of a time to stop and look. I'm just the next one pointing. Look, the wolf is real. The wolf is here, and it's in your pockets. It's in your headphones, and it's even whispering to you right now that you're a brand, you're on your own, and the move is to get yours and stunt on everybody who came up beside you. But here's the thing about a wolf. A wolf eats the one that wanders by themselves. A wolf will not attack a group. So nah. Nobody gets to say, nobody told you. The boy cried cool, and this time the village heard him. The question that I'm asking was never, what are you gonna do? It's what are we gonna do? For watching this, made it this far, I love you, I appreciate you, I support you, and I hope the feeling is mutual. Have a great day.